Welcome back, fans. This is the story of Angela Kwadwo, a Black woman who placed her faith in the wrong family member and found herself waking up in an unfamiliar place. And Kim Tae-hyun, Korea's most dangerous underground kingpin who certainly didn't anticipate discovering a drugged stranger in his private sanctuary. It's a story of deception, unexpected bonds, and a romance that defied every logical explanation, one that will grip you from start to finish. If you're ready for what is about to unfold in this story, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next story, and comment where you're watching from. The sensation of expensive silk against her bare skin felt alien, wrong in every possible way. Angela's consciousness clawed its way back slowly, her skull throbbing with a relentless ache that seemed to echo through every nerve. Her throat felt like sandpaper, and there was a chemical aftertaste coating her mouth that she couldn't identify. Her limbs felt weighted down, as though invisible chains held her captive between sleep and waking. She fought to piece together the fragments. A meal. Yes, there had been a meal. Her cousin's enthusiastic voice echoing through the dining room. The sound of champagne being uncorked. Something sweet, sickeningly sweet, sliding down her throat. Then absolute nothingness, like falling into a void with no bottom. Angela's eyelids lifted gradually, the world assembling itself in disjointed fragments. Pristine white ceiling above. Strange surroundings. Pale sunlight streaming through panoramic windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. The quiet whisper of climate control somewhere in the walls. This definitely wasn't her cousin's cramped apartment. This wasn't the tiny spare bedroom with the uncomfortable futon and peeling paint where she'd been crashing for nearly a month. Terror bloomed in her chest like ice spreading through water. She moved slightly, her hand reaching instinctively toward where her phone should be resting. But instead of the familiar plastic of her phone case, her fingers encountered warmth. Living, breathing warmth. Every muscle in her body locked. Inch by agonizing inch. Terrified of confirmation, Angela rotated her head. Her lungs forgot how to function, the air trapped somewhere in her throat. A man lay beside her. A complete stranger. His complexion was fair against the pristine bedding, his black hair slightly disheveled from sleep. Sharp features, defined cheekbones, a straight nose, lips pressed into a line in peaceful unconsciousness. He possessed that particular brand of attractiveness that felt almost threatening, the kind that made you simultaneously want to stare and flee. But his appearance wasn't what sent her heart into overdrive. It was his presence here, in this bed, beside her. And she possessed absolutely no recollection of how any of this had transpired. No memory of his identity. No memory of anything following that overly sweet champagne her cousin had insisted she try. Angela's thoughts spiraled into chaos, fear and confusion battling for dominance. Where was she? What had transpired? Why was her memory just a gaping black hole? And who was this sleeping stranger who seemed so comfortable beside her? She glanced downward, and her stomach plummeted. The outfit she'd worn to dinner had vanished. She wore only her bra and underwear now. The delicate fabric suddenly felt obscene, inappropriate in this foreign space with this unknown man. Dear God, what happened to me? Her breathing accelerated, becoming shallow and panicked. She had to escape, had to flee before he opened his eyes, before she'd be forced to explain circumstances she couldn't begin to comprehend herself. Her trembling hands attempted to ease her body away from his, tried to extract herself from the bed without creating disturbance. But the fabric whispered against fabric, the mattress dipped under her shifting weight, and his eyes opened. For several heartbeats, they simply stared at one another. His eyes were intensely dark, penetrating even through the fog of interrupted sleep. They traveled across her features, absorbing every detail with a focus that made her feel stripped bare, vulnerable, as if he could read every terrified thought racing through her mind. Then those eyes expanded slightly. Surprise registered across his features, morphing rapidly into confusion, then hardening into suspicion. He jerked upright, the sheets falling away to reveal a bare, muscular torso. Angela caught a glimpse of defined abs, broad shoulders, before forcing her gaze away, her face burning with humiliation and fear. Who are you? His voice emerged deep and rough from sleep, but carried an edge of steel beneath. He spoke Korean first, then switched to accented English upon seeing her incomprehension. Who are you? How did you enter this room? I don't know. Angela's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. She clutched the sheets against herself like they could provide protection. I don't know. I don't understand how I got here. I don't know who you are. I don't remember anything. His eyes narrowed, scrutinizing her with the precision of someone trained to detect deception and vulnerability. You don't know, he echoed, his tone dripping with skepticism. I'm telling the truth, she pleaded desperately, tears already threatening to spill. Please, I swear. I was at my cousin's place. We ate together. She poured champagne, and then I woke up here. I can't explain any of this. Please, I just need to leave. He continued studying her, and she could practically see calculations happening behind those sharp eyes, weighing possibilities, determining whether she was being honest or spinning an elaborate deception. Kim Tae-hyun didn't trust accidents. In his world, accidents were carefully orchestrated illusions designed to mask intentions and manipulations. He'd constructed his empire, built his entire underground network on the principles of control and meticulous strategy. Random chance didn't exist in his precisely managed world. Yet here was a woman in his bed. A striking woman with deep brown skin that seemed to glow golden in the morning light, with natural coils of dark hair cascading past her shoulders, with wide frightened eyes that appeared genuinely terrified. A woman he'd never encountered before. A woman claiming complete ignorance of her presence here. His mind cycled through scenarios. A trap, rival organizations, blackmail attempts. His operation had enemies, competitors who'd sacrifice anything to catch him compromised, to manufacture leverage that would give them power over him or dismantle his carefully constructed empire. But something felt off. The woman's terror seemed too authentic, too visceral. Most honey trap operations came with seduction tactics, calculated flirtation, and strategic manipulation. This woman looked like she wanted to vanish into thin air. What's your name? He asked, his voice deliberately neutral now. She swallowed visibly, her throat working. Angela. Angela Quadwo. The name meant nothing to him. The accent was American, clear and unambiguous. You're not Korean, he observed flatly. No, I'm American. My father is African American. My mother was Korean. The words tumbled out frantically, desperate to explain, to make him believe her. I arrived in Korea about a month ago to stay with my cousin. She's my mother's niece. She invited me, said it would be meaningful for me to experience my Korean roots, to visit where my mother's family came from. Taehyun's analytical mind cataloged each detail. Korean mother, African American father, staying with a cousin, 1 month in the country. None of it explained how she'd materialized in his bed at his private residence, the fortified penthouse that served as both home and headquarters, the place he'd returned to around 3 in the morning after a particularly violent territorial dispute that had lasted into the early hours. Tell me about last night, he commanded. Everything you can recall. Angela closed her eyes, attempting to gather the fragments through the chemical fog clouding her brain. My cousin called yesterday. Said she wanted to take me somewhere special for dinner, just us. She'd been weird since I arrived, always distracted with her friends, her life. I was actually happy she wanted to spend time together. Her voice fractured on those final words, the betrayal tasting acrid in her mouth. We went to her apartment, not out like I expected. She said she'd prepared traditional dishes, that she wanted to share family stories. Angela's hands twisted anxiously in the sheets. We ate, we talked, she opened champagne. Said it was expensive, imported. I rarely drink, but she kept refilling my glass, insisting we were celebrating family. And then, Taehyun pressed, watching every micro-expression crossing her face. And then everything became blurry. The room started spinning. I tried to tell her I felt sick, but I couldn't form words properly. She just smiled. Isabel's breathing hitched. Smiled like she'd been anticipating that exact moment. Then nothing. Just darkness. Until I woke up here next to you. The pieces were assembling in Taehyun's mind, forming a picture he found deeply disturbing. Your cousin drugged you, he stated flatly. No, she wouldn't. She's family. She's practically the only family I have left here. But even as Angela spoke those words, Uncertainty crept into her voice because her cousin had been acting strangely, asking peculiar questions about Angela's plans, her connections back home, whether anyone knew her exact location in Seoul. Taehyun reached for his phone on the nightstand, checking security footage timestamps. He'd returned to his penthouse around 3, exhausted from violence and negotiations. The place had been dark, secured. He'd stripped off his blood-stained jacket and collapsed into bed without checking the other rooms, too drained to notice anything amiss. His security was supposed to be impenetrable, and yet someone had breached it. Someone had entered his sanctuary and left Angela here like some kind of twisted delivery. "Stay here," he ordered, standing abruptly. He grabbed a shirt from a nearby chair, pulling it on as he walked into the main living area, phone already at his ear, issuing rapid-fire orders in Korean. Angela sat paralyzed in the bed, her mind spinning in terrified circles. She could hear him in the adjoining room, his voice low and intense, speaking Korean too quickly for her limited understanding. She examined the bedroom properly now, searching for context, for clues about where she was and who this intimidating man might be. The space was luxurious but austere, expensive but impersonal. Sleek furniture, dark colors, nothing personal except a few books in Korean on a shelf. Through the massive windows, she could see Seoul stretching endlessly below, the Han River snaking through the urban landscape. Angela grabbed a blanket, wrapping herself in it, needing coverage, needing to feel less exposed and vulnerable. When Taehyun returned, his expression was grim, dangerous in a way that made her instinctively press back against the headboard. "I reviewed my security footage. A woman matching your cousin's description entered the building around 2 in the morning. She had access codes. She was inside for approximately 15 minutes before departing. But how could she possibly have your access codes?" Angela asked, her voice small and frightened. "That's precisely what I intend to discover." His jaw clenched, rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior. Someone had violated his security, invaded his private space, and planted a woman in his bed. This was more than unusual. This was calculated, deliberate. He studied Angela properly now, seeing beyond the initial shock to the person underneath. She was younger than him, probably mid-20s. Beautiful, undeniably, but there was more. Strength in her posture, despite the fear. Intelligence in her gaze, even as terror made her tremble. She wasn't a willing participant in whatever scheme was unfolding. She was a victim, just as much as he was a target. "You cannot return to your cousin's apartment," Taehyun said firmly. "Whatever she's entangled in, it's dangerous. You need to avoid her completely." "But where can I go? Everything I own is there. My passport, my clothes, my money, my return ticket. I can't just—" "You'll remain here," he interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll ensure your safety while I determine what's actually happening." Angela stared at him in disbelief. "I can't stay with you. I don't even know who you are." "You don't have a choice," Taehyun said, his voice softer but no less firm. "Whatever your cousin planned, it wasn't innocent. Until I understand the full picture, you're safer here than anywhere else in Seoul." Meanwhile, across the city in an expensive high-rise in Gangnam, Ji-hye Park was pacing her designer apartment like a trapped animal, her designer heels clicking frantically against the imported marble. Her phone rang for the 6th time that morning, and when she saw the caller ID, her blood turned to ice water. "Mr. Beck, the loan shark, the monster." She answered with trembling fingers. "Mr. Beck, good morning." "Where is she?" The voice was cold, flat, lethal. "Where is the merchandise I purchased?" "Merchandise? I'm not sure what." "Don't insult my intelligence, Ji-hye." The name dripped with contempt. "The foreign girl you promised me. I paid you 300 million won. You guaranteed she'd be delivered last night to the location. I arrived. The place was empty. So I'll ask one more time. Where is she?" Ji-hye felt the world tilting beneath her feet. "You went to the location, but I delivered her personally. I left her exactly where we agreed. She was unconscious, exactly as you specified. Then someone removed her because when I arrived at 4 in the morning, there was no girl. Just an empty apartment." His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Did you scam me, Ji-hye? Did you take my money with no intention of fulfilling our arrangement?" "No, Mr. Beck, I swear I delivered her precisely as agreed. Someone must have. Jihai's thoughts raced frantically. How could this have happened? She drugged Angela herself, watched her cousin's eyes roll back, watched her collapse into unconsciousness. She'd personally transported her to the address, using the access codes Mr. Beck had provided, to what was supposed to be a secure location. But clearly, something had gone catastrophically wrong. I'll locate her, Jihai said desperately. I promise you, Mr. Beck. I'll find Angela and deliver her to you. Just give me some time. You have 1 week, Beck said, his voice like a blade sliding across skin. 7 days to deliver what you promised. If you fail, Jihai, you'll take her place. Understand? You'll serve as payment for your debt. And believe me, you won't enjoy how I collect. The line went dead. Jihai stood frozen, the phone slipping from her trembling hand, and clattering on the floor. 7 days. She had 7 days to find Angela and deliver her to a man who would destroy her, or face that fate herself. She'd seen what Mr. Beck did to women, heard the whispered stories about girls who'd been sold to him and vanished completely, or emerged as hollow, broken versions of themselves. He didn't want companionship. He wanted possession, dominance, the satisfaction of shattering beautiful things. Jihai had sold 2 other girls to him over the past year, paying off crushing gambling debts and maintaining her lifestyle. Foreign students, girls without connections, girls who disappeared into his world and never resurfaced. She'd convinced herself it didn't matter, that they were strangers, that survival required difficult choices. But now her own life hung in the balance, and suddenly those justifications felt meaningless. She retrieved her phone from the floor with shaking hands and made a call. I need someone found, she said when her contact answered. A girl, 24, black, natural hair, approximately 5'6". Her name is Angela Quadwo. What do we do when we locate her? Bring her to me. Quietly. No police, no attention. Jihai's voice hardened with desperation. Use whatever methods necessary. I need her back within the week. She disconnected and immediately placed another call. Then another. And another. Casting a wide net across Seoul's underground. Angela was somewhere in this massive city, and Jihai would tear it apart to find her. Days turned into a week. Taehyun had dispatched his people to retrieve Angela's belongings from her cousin's apartment, accompanied by enough implicit threat that refusal wasn't an option. He'd also set his intelligence network to investigating Jihai Park, uncovering a web of gambling debts, dangerous connections, and disturbing rumors about missing foreign women. Angela stayed in the penthouse, venturing outside only occasionally with Taehyun beside her, always alert. He'd arranged for her to have new clothes, a new phone, everything necessary. But beyond material things, he'd given her something unexpected. His time, his genuine attention, his protection. They spent evenings talking over meals he had delivered from various restaurants. Mornings sharing coffee while he reviewed business matters, and she read. Gradually, carefully, something formed between them. Born from bizarre circumstances, built on mutual respect and developing trust. Angela found herself noticing details about him. The way he truly listened when she spoke, like her words carried weight. The gentleness in his voice when he sensed her struggling. The protective way he positioned himself between her and potential threats whenever they ventured outside. And Taehyun found himself drawn to her in ways that defied logic. Her resilience, despite her fear. Her laugh when she finally began to relax. The way her curls moved when she turned her head. The insight in her observations about his business when he sought her perspective. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to be a problem requiring resolution. But somewhere between that first morning and these quiet shared moments, she'd become something more. 2 weeks after that first morning, something fundamental shifted between them. They were on the penthouse balcony, watching the city lights illuminate as evening fell. Angela had been quiet, lost in thought, and Taehyun had been content simply being beside her in comfortable silence. Thank you, she said suddenly, turning toward him. For everything. For believing me. For protecting me. I don't know what would have happened if I'd woken up alone. You don't need to thank me, Taehyun said quietly. Any decent person would have done the same. But not everyone would have. Not everyone would have risked their time, their resources, their safety for a complete stranger. "You're not a stranger anymore," he said, the words escaping before he could reconsider them. Their eyes met and held, the space between them charged with something neither had acknowledged until this moment. Angela's breath caught as Taehyun leaned incrementally closer. "This is complicated," she whispered. "Everything worthwhile is," he replied. But before either could move, before either could close that remaining distance, Taehyun's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening instantly. "I need to take this." He stepped back inside, answering in rapid Korean. Angela remained on the balcony, her heart still racing, her mind spinning with what had almost occurred. When Taehyun returned, his face was grim, dangerous. "That was my head of security. Your cousin has been making inquiries. Extensive ones. She's hired people to search for you." Fear flooded back through Angela's system. "She's looking for me?" "Very actively. She's distributed your photo to investigators, informants, street contacts. She's desperate." Taehyun's jaw tightened visibly. "Which means whatever she's involved in, the stakes are higher than we thought." "What do we do?" "We're cautious. We limit our exposure. We stay vigilant." He met her eyes directly. "And we figure out her actual plan before she locates you." But across the city, Jihai's desperate search was about to yield results. 2 weeks of searching, of spreading money and photographs across Seoul's underground networks, of exhausting every favor and connection she possessed. Then, on a humid afternoon with storm clouds gathering, one of her hired watchers made the call she'd been desperately awaiting. "I found her." Jihai's heart leaped. "Where?" "Gangnam." Exiting a building near the COEX. She was with a man. Tall, expensive clothes. They entered a black sedan. "Did you get photographs?" "Yes." "Sending them now." Jihai's phone vibrated with incoming images. She opened them with trembling fingers and felt her blood freeze. There was Angela, looking healthy and protected and completely unharmed. And beside her, his hand resting protectively on her lower back, was Kim Taehyun. Kim Taehyun, the underground kingpin. One of the most dangerous, most powerful men in Seoul's criminal underworld. How had Angela ended up under his protection? The location she delivered Angela to was supposed to be neutral, a secured space arranged through Mr. Beck's connections. But somehow, impossibly, Angela had ended up with Kim Taehyun instead. This changed everything. Jihai couldn't simply snatch Angela off the street now. Not when she was protected by someone with that level of power and resources. But she also couldn't fail. Not with Mr. Beck's deadline approaching. Not with her own survival at stake. She made a call, her voice steady despite the panic churning inside. "I found her, but there's a complication. She's with Kim Taehyun." Silence. Then Mr. Beck's voice, colder than ever. "Then separate her from him. I don't care how. You have 5 days remaining, Jihai. Don't waste them." Jihai disconnected and stared at the photographs again. Angela looked content, safe, protected. Everything Jihai had never been. Everything she'd sacrificed others to secure for herself. Bitter resentment filled her mouth, but she forced it down. Survival meant doing whatever was necessary, even if it meant destroying her only remaining family. She made another call, this one to someone she'd hoped never to contact again. Someone whose methods were questionable, but whose results were guaranteed. "I have a job for you," she said. "It needs to be done quickly and discreetly. There's a girl under Kim Taehyun's protection. I need her taken. Can you do it?" A pause. Then a price that made her stomach turn. But what alternative did she have? "Do it," she agreed. "Whatever it takes." That evening, Angela and Taehyun decided to venture out for dinner at a quiet restaurant he knew, one with private rooms and staff who asked no questions. They needed normalcy, even briefly, needed to pretend for a few hours that they were simply two people enjoying each other's company. Angela wore a simple black dress that Taehyun had arranged to be delivered, the fabric flowing elegantly. She'd left her curls natural, and they framed her face in a way that made Taehyun's breath catch when he first saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply, sincerely. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you." They walked to his car together, his driver waiting. Neither noticed the motorcycle idling down the street, the rider's helmet concealing his face. Neither saw the camera documenting their every movement, recording their route, their timing, their patterns. At the restaurant, they sat across from each other in a private room with traditional screens and soft lighting. The food was exceptional, but both barely registered it, too absorbed in the conversation flowing between them. "Tell me about your parents," Taehyun said. "Your real family, before your cousin." Angela's expression softened with memory and grief. "My father was a jazz musician, incredibly talented, passionate about his art. My mother was Korean-American, second generation. She was a translator. They met at a cultural festival in New York and fell in love despite all the reasons they shouldn't have." Why shouldn't they have? Different worlds, different expectations. My mother's family disapproved completely. They thought she was making a terrible mistake, marrying a Black American musician, leaving her community. They disowned her entirely. Taehyun nodded slowly. "Is that why you came to Korea? To reconnect with that heritage?" "Yes. After my parents died in a plane crash 3 years ago, I felt lost, disconnected. I thought maybe coming here, meeting my cousin, would help me feel closer to my mother again." Her laugh was bitter. "I was clearly wrong about that." "Not wrong," Taehyun said gently. "Just unfortunate in who your cousin proved to be." They talked late into the evening, exchanging stories and secrets, building something fragile and precious between them. When they finally departed the restaurant, stepping into the cool night air, both felt lighter than they had in weeks. Neither saw the van that had been waiting. Neither noticed when it began following them at a careful distance. Angela and Taehyun walked back toward his car, her hand somehow finding his, their fingers intertwining naturally. For the first time since that terrible morning when she'd woken in a stranger's bed, Angela felt something resembling hope. She didn't know she'd been photographed. Didn't know her location was already being transmitted to her cousin. Didn't know that her worst nightmare had just been set into motion. What happens next? Find out in the final episode dropping soon. Type part 2 in the comments to let me know you're ready for it. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me how you'd rate this story so far from 0 to 10. Hit the share button so others don't miss the story. See you in the next one.